Hey there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. My name is Daniel Trinham, and I will be your host as always. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to let you know of a few things of note. First, you may or may not be aware that I host another podcast called The Third Seat. The Third Seat is unrelated to the podcast you are listening to right now, but if you'd like to check it out, then I will put a link in the description of today's episode that you can use to listen to it. If you like this podcast, then I really think you will like The Third Seat as well, so I highly recommend you check it out. Next, I want to let you know of a few ways you can support the podcast. First, be sure to tell a friend if you enjoy the show. Word of mouth is not only a great way to help support the show, but it's also zero cost. Secondly, if you enjoyed today's episode, then be sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Leaving a positive review is one of the best ways of not only supporting the show, but it also gives me direct feedback from you regarding how you feel about the show overall. I greatly appreciate if you decide to take the time to support the show in any of these ways. Finally, if you'd like to follow me or the show on social media, then feel free to check out the description of today's episode. Here you will find all affiliated and mentioned links, as well as how you can support the show online. As always, I want to thank you for tuning into and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. All right, everyone. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. My name is Daniel Trinham. I will be your host for today, as always. And my guest today is someone that I actually haven't talked to in a long time, but I'm really looking forward to talking to him today. He is somebody that I met, I guess it was in either I want to say late middle school. I went through high school with, and it's been a minute since we talked to him, but I'm excited to talk to him today. So Cole, thank you for joining me today.
Nice to see you, by the way. Didn't think it's funny that I gave my whole back story before the podcast, but so we may rehash a little bit. So just apologizing to you in advance.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. But yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, so I'm trying to think of when we met. I guess it was I want to say it was like my 7th grade year.
Yeah, I was just about to graduate.
Middle school. But we met in middle school, and I don't even remember how we met, but we used to hang out for me, you, your brother, and everybody used to hang out on a relatively frequent basis. We kept in touch during high school, and like most people, just kind of went our separate ways after high school, and here we are now. So you don't have to rehash the whole story if you don't. I mean, you can if you want to. But you don't have to rehash the whole story. But for those that don't know, just fill everybody in on kind of what you've been up to, how you got to where you are, and how you're doing right now.
So about 2.5 years ago, I'll tell a different version.
Okay.
Even though it's factually the same.
Yeah.
But anyways, so 2.5 years ago, I was at Lee University in Cleveland. I met a girl named Erica at a party, and so we started going out and stuff. Got engaged. I dropped out of college because it just wasn't. At the time, it was just like I had no motivation whatsoever to pursue education.
I get that.
Yeah, I totally just wanted to go out and work jobs and live for peanuts for a second, and I did that. And then I met this guy named Massey at one of the jobs I worked in called Main Stage Music in Dayton, Tennessee. It's a guitar shop. Really cool place. Love the owner, Brad. He's a fantastic person, and Jackie's wife's awesome. So me and him were talking, and we were like, well, there's no music scene in Tennessee. So, well, in our area, at least, like Dayton, Athens, Cleveland, Etowah. So like, why not make one? So we did, and it's still going now. It's called Grassroots Radical, I think is what they're calling it, which is really cool. There's like 2 music videos out, by the way, by those guys now. Honeymoon just released a music video for a song called Tank Man, about the Tank Man from Tiananmen Square. It's a really cool song.
Oh yeah, I've been there actually. Fun fact.
Have you really?
I have been there. Yeah.
Not fun fact. Not so fun historical thing.
Yeah. Fun fact for me.
Fun fact for you.
Yeah, for me, I got to go there, and when it was a lot calmer, to say the least. But yeah, continue.
You did the crosswalk in Abbey Road, but on Tiananmen.
Yeah.
Look, but anyways, less offensive now. Okay. Sorry. But so we started playing, and we threw a show at my house, and they're still playing. But yeah, Massey also released a music video for a song that I helped him write that he called "Pretty Good at It." Um, and the music video is actually really awesome. I don't know if that one's out yet. He just got the final cut back for that yesterday, and I got to watch it. Really cool. But yeah. So that's what I've been up to. I moved to West Virginia with my fiance because we're broke. She trying to find work after she graduated, so we're up here now. She actually just got a job yesterday at a local farm. She's going to be a baker for them.
Nice.
So that'll be really fun. And we love that farm, and their food's amazing. And they're helping cater our wedding.
So she is quite literally going to be bringing home the bread, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Oh, she's always done it. She's beautiful, man. She's a power woman.
That's awesome.
She wants.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I gotta say, I don't know how to say this and not make myself sound pretentious when I say this, but like I've always been like interested in music. I mean, my earliest memories that I can remember of like listening to music on the radio or like listening, is
Same.
I remember my dad, he's a huge fan of Boston. He loves Boston. And like that whole era of music, and like that was what he would always want to listen to if we ever drove somewhere. And so that was kind of what I grew up listening to, and what I still to this day like I have a soft side for.
Yeah, you put your aviators on. Listen to
Boston, right? Yeah. And so I mean, I've always had an interest in music. I mean, my personal like my personal what I like and what I like to listen to on a frequent basis has changed over time. But you and your brother specifically have always, to me, like seemed to be just like super huge fans of music, like in every way that I can tell.
Totally.
And especially, I mean, no shade to where we're from, but that's not like a super common thing. Not that people where we're from don't like music, but most people where we're from just kind of stick to one or two genres that they resonate with and just kind of go from it with it. I think that's what most people do, to be honest. But you all seem to definitely like have a wide interest in music, and not just in the sense that you like the way it sounds, but you wanted to collect it and you wanted to dive deep into it and learn about the history of it. And just out of curiosity, like what for you, you personally, what sparked that for you? Like what made you want to kind of, I don't want to say go down that rabbit hole. That's not the right way to put it. But like, what made you want to kind of dive deep into just the vast array of music that you were interested in personally?
I'll tell you. I can't.
Was there like a moment? Was there like a moment where like, oh, this is what I want to, look into?
So I will say I think the most standout moment for me musically growing up is either listening and singing along with songs in the car with my mom, like listening to Joni or listening to Queen, even like we were singing along to Queen, or like the radio in my dad's bathroom on Sunday mornings taking a shower before church, because sometimes Champagne Supernova would play on that shower, by the way. And there was a certain way that sounded to me that just sounded like heaven. Like when
that's a great song. That's a great song.
I know it is. And like I've been reading a lot about Oasis lately. It's kind of hilarious. But I mean, looking back, that song really did. It changed everything for me, I think. That one song. And like I don't even really like it anymore. And it doesn't take me anywhere when I listen to it, but it does. I mean, it does have that significance for me, for sure. Yeah.
When would you like? At what point in your life would you say that was?
That would be like 5 or 6 for sure. And I got a guitar around that time too, because I'll tell you, Keith Urban was a huge influence at the time. Looking back, not so much, but I mean, but for the grace of God, like that, I was all into that, which is so funny. I mean, I saw him at the Grand Ole Opry when I was 6, and that was a huge deal at the time. I stayed up till 12 o'clock for like the first time ever as a 6-year-old for that show. But
so was that a show you went to, or was that like when
we went to the Grand Ole Opry and watched it?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was back when like I guess you could say he's at least like good. like in
Yeah.
pop standards, I guess,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm glad you mentioned, which this may not be the song in particular that I want to ask you about, but I'm glad you mentioned Champagne Supernova, because that is a great song. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It's by Oasis. But I've had this idea floating around in my head that I've been pondering on over the past few weeks, or not necessarily weeks, but one of the interviews I actually did for this podcast, I asked one of my guests this, and I want to ask it to you because I think it's an interesting question, but I don't know. We'll see. So I know you're familiar with the band Metallica, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So back in 2020, I'd known about Metallica before that, but for some reason I had a very big Metallica phase. Like I got into it and I was like, this is all I'm going to listen to. Like I love this. And they're great. They're phenomenal.
They're fantastic. It blows your mind how good they are. Actually.
They're
it's like
awesome.
Sabbath, actually. I went back and listened to Sabbath. Sorry to cut the story for a second. Sabbath, if you ever want to go back and listen to Sabbath, start at the very beginning, work your way up. They are revolutionary. Yeah. It blows your mind how much they've been joked about to death because they're amazing. But anyways, keep talking. We'll talk about that.
No, and so there's a reason I bring this up, I promise. But I got into a big Metallica phase. I'm not sure what inspired it, but I really it's what I listen to. I still like to listen to him today. And then I think it was in 2021, last year at some point, they released the sequel to one of their previous, way back, I think I want to say early 2000s, maybe late 90s.
Yeah.
It was after the Black Album release, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
They released S&M, which is, if you're not familiar with it, whoever's listening to this, it's Metallica and the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. It's a really cool album. Like they're playing their songs live with an orchestra backing. It's a really cool thing. And so in 2021 they released S&M 2 with a bunch of their newer songs and different. Cool. Obviously they're a little bit older, and so for me it was new because I hadn't listened to anything like that before. Yeah. And so it was a really cool. I really enjoyed that album, and it got me thinking. I was like, this is a cool concept. I've heard live albums before. I've heard, live performances there, but I've never heard a mixture of these two genres, especially these two hard contrasting genres, and excuse me. And so for me, I was like, if I could turn a song or an album into this, if I could merge an orchestra with this, what would I want to merge with it? And so my question for you, which I'll give you my answer to give you a minute to think, and you may have an answer right off the top of your head. Is there a song for you that if you could have a live orchestra backing version of this song that you would want to hear? And I know that's a big question, but
that's a great question.
I will give you two examples of what I would love to hear with an orchestra backing that I know you'll be familiar with at least one of them, maybe both of them. But the first one it's technically two songs, but I'm going to merge them into one. Is parts 1 and 2 of "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" by Pink Floyd. That song to me, and for both of these songs, I'm going to tell you, it's the same reason for both of them, but that song has such a huge crescendo to it. It just builds up into this huge thing.
It never stops.
Yeah, and the story behind it is really cool. And I just think that song is dying to have an orchestra just playing behind, just building it up. I think that'd be the coolest thing. Yeah. And then to me, the next song is by a more contemporary band. Do you know who Black Country New Road is?
Yeah. That new album. I love Bread Song. I think Bread Song.
Yes. Okay. I love that album. I love that album so much. This which song is it? Basketball Shoes. Basketball Shoes on that album. Yeah. That song it's a long. They're both long songs. Basketball Shoes is a 12-minute song. It's a bit of a monster of a song, but it builds up into this just grand finale in the end, and it's just so packed full of emotion, and just the lyrics are fantastic, and it's written so well. And if I could hear that song with just a grand orchestra back, I think that would be the coolest thing. And so my question for you is, do you have a song like that you could think of?
Since you picked two, I already have two picked.
Okay, great.
So first of all, I would probably pick Doku Kim by Sun Kill Moon. I don't know if you know who Sun Kill Moon is.
I do know who Sun Kill Moon is. I'm not super familiar with their music though.
Do not lionize Sun Kill Moon or Mark Potts like it's a person, but I do love Red House Painters, and I think that he's probably one of the best songwriters of all time. He really is. Terrible person. Really is. And all the songs, honestly, if we really analyze them, are about being a terrible person. But Doku Kim, why would I have that song with an orchestra behind it? It's because it's literally an orchestra of guitars. I'll tell you the first time I ever heard overtone. And music theory wise, what's an overtone? Okay, so every ant on my desk. Okay. So every instrument resonates, right? And every note's a vibration. There's actually, I think it's like how it's explained to me is 9 to 12 notes that actually play over one note that give it the harmonic sound and timbre that it has, right? And so the first time I ever heard an overtone was on that song because there's about 50 guitar tracks all playing at once in the song. And it makes beautiful, harmonious, like drone over the entire song that I've just never heard anything else. It's 15 minutes or 14 minutes of like, and what I'll describe is, okay, Doku Kim starts off with him talking about a typhoon washing over their hotel room. That's exactly harmonically and like sonically the version that's the song itself describes a storm washing over you almost like musically. So I just think that'd be awesome orchestra hear that. I can't say, but just blab word spitted at you, sorry. But I was really passionate about that. I love that song. It's one of my favorite songs of all time.
What album is that on?
It's called Ghost of the Great Highway.
Okay, because I know of Sunkoven. I haven't listened to a lot of their music, but now that you said this, I want to definitely go check it out. So, okay, I will definitely check that out. You said you have two. What's your second song?
Second one is a slow dive song called Allison.
Okay.
So shoegaze itself to me is very orchestral. I think that it's not as focused like rock music is on the riff. It's more focused on building up something else or some kind of new sound. And like when you listen to orchestral music, a lot of the time you realize like the composers are actually mixing timbres to make very unique noises. You know what I mean? And like a shoegaze person, like shoegaze artist to me, if they're good at least, is more like a composer. And Allison to me is orchestral in itself. It's beautiful. I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but there's a break in between the first chorus and the second verse that is literally heaven on earth. Like it takes your breath away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I'm not super familiar with that last one, but I know exactly what you're talking about because with me, the part of the reason why I love those two songs that I mentioned, technically three if you're counting parts 1 and 2 of the song, but we'll pretend that they're one. Is there's so many different layers to it, not just from a sonic state, like how not just from how it sounds, but the stories and the meaning behind those songs. I mean, from there's perspective of the Pink Floyd songs. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but there's a lot of high speculation that song. I think it's been confirmed, but
it is completely confirmed. Actually,
okay. I wasn't sure
Sid Barrett walked in the studio while they were making
it. Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure if it was confirmed, but I didn't want to speak too far out of tone. But the song is basically about their original lead guitarist Sid Barrett. Yeah. And so when you take it from that lens, like look at this, like it's already a cool song as it is, but when you look at what they're saying and how that it's kind of like a personal and emotional ode to their old band member. It becomes a lot more heavy, like it's not just this cool sounding song. There's a lot of important baggage behind it, I guess.
It's a funeral procession.
Yeah,
it really is.
It really is. I mean, they're saying goodbye to their friend, to their one of the founding members of the band that took them that as far as they were. And so to me, I just thought that was really cool. Like it's kind of this somewhat subversive message to their friend. But even at that, it's such they could have very well just done like a ballad song. Like, there's nothing wrong with ballads, but like if you've never listened to that song, when you first listen to it, you're probably gonna be like, holy cow, this song is like 12 minutes long. I'm not listening to this. But even at that, it takes a while for it to get to the point where it's really kind of rolling,
Yeah.
But I just think if you're willing to make that short time investment, it's just so rewarding because the first time that they, I'm blanking on the lead singers. Is Roger Waters the lead singer, or am I just thinking?
I think that David Gilmour sings on
David
that
Gilmour.
song.
I was getting them too confused.
Yeah.
The first time that he says "shine," like that is like that to me is like in my mind, just like the gates of heaven are just opening up. Like right when I'm like, oh my god, that's so good.
That first like blues guitar line when he sings "When We Were Young," and it's like, I love that. Like that's amazing as genius.
It's fantastic, and the same thing for basketball shoes. I'm glad you know who Black Country New Road is, because they're relatively new, and their new album just came out. It's so good. But that song in particular, it also is a long song, but it's the conclusion for their album, and that song, in my opinion, is best if you're willing to listen to the album from start to finish.
Yeah,
it's great on its own. Like it's great on its own, but everything that builds up from an emotional and a lyrical standpoint, from how everything prior to it builds up to that song, and how much of a just giant send off it is. It's so good. It's so good. The final 3 minutes of that song are some of the best music I've ever heard in my life. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I legitimately, to me, some of the best music I've ever heard. It is so good. The lyrics are just hitting you right in the gut, like in the best way. And it's fantastic. I love it. And I would pay good money to go see that with a live orchestra behind it. So I don't know if I ever will. Sadly, their lead singer left the band right before the album dropped. So I don't know.
Did he really?
Yeah, I think his name was Isaac. I forget his last name, but a week before their album dropped, Answer Up There, they announced that he had to leave for some reason. So I don't know. I didn't say exactly why. Yeah, but I will say though, I was able to purchase the deluxe vinyl of it, and they have a live performance of it. So I do have that to hold on to.
Awesome.
But it was totally worth it. I was going looking just for the regular album version. I just wanted to get it, and I saw the deluxe one. I was like, oh, I gotta have that. I gotta have it.
I'll tell you, that's an album that you spend an evening with. Like,
it's so good.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so cinematic. It feels like there's some kind of it's almost like if Lady Bird was an album. I don't know if you've ever watched that movie.
Yeah,
but it's like, if that's an album, that's what it is. There's just so many feelings where I've felt this before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
almost like it's like a liminal experience. Like your subconscious feeling things it hasn't felt in a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever listened to Boards of Canada either, but it's like that.
No, I have not, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, to me, and not to say that either one of these are objectively better or or worse than the other one, but to me, an album like that is not one that it's difficult to just to listen to that and just kind of let it play. Like, to me, if I'm going to listen to that, I have to I don't want to say I have to stop what I'm doing, but I want to try and be as in the moment and present as I can, because, and again, not to say that other songs that are good for kind of in the background are bad or anything. It's just a song and an album like this, it kind of forces you to just soak it all in. At least for me, you're being kind of bombarded with all these different sounds and these different layers and these different like I said, if you listen to the whole album leading up to it, there's so many different stories and so many different emotions from the band that's poured into this last song that I just think I think it's great. I think it's so cool. And I'm so glad that I came across them, because they are so good. They're so good. It is fantastic. That album specifically, I'm pretty sure it's the final 3. Let me just look at it. I have my phone is right in front of me. But the final 3 songs, I want to say, let me pull it up just real quick. The final 3 songs. So the 8th song is The Place Where He Inserted the Blade. The 9th song is Snow Globes, and the 10th song is Basketball Shoes. Those 3 songs are just sucker punches, in the best way. I don't know how to explain it. If you just you have to listen to those songs. They're so good. They're so cinematic, the way you said cinematic. They're just so good.
Yeah. I mean, it honestly, I know this, I hate to say Pixar, because I feel like that downplays it nowadays. Pixar movies kind of been sucking lately, in my opinion. But it does, it feels like what? Actually, I would take back my statement on Lady Bird. It feels more akin to watching a Pixar I guess.
Mhm.
Like maybe Toy Story or something like that. It
Yeah.
gives me Toy Story like vibes. We'll leave it at that. Though. I don't want to accidentally say something mean about such a great album.
But no, like I get it. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, and this is the thing that I always find, like it's hard to explain like why, at least for me personally, like why I enjoy certain music and why I don't enjoy other music, because
Yeah.
it's all so abstract. Like it's also it's not like you can't like hold it, touch it, and show it.
Yeah.
You know, man, I'm telling you, if you're listening, you haven't listened to this album, Black Country New Road. It's so good. I love it. It's great. But on a somewhat different note, I want to get your kind of thoughts on something that I've been somewhat participating in and somewhat just thinking about a lot lately. So I don't know when it became a thing, but the big like model in the music industry right now is obviously performance through streaming services.
Yeah.
That's the way that that's the way money is made, basically, in the music industry at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's been an interesting thing that I've seen happen, because you think about like way back in the day, before there was even CDs, it was all about vinyl records.
Yeah.
Most albums were at most 45 to 50 minutes long, because that's all you could fit on a record, like physically on a record. That's all you could fit. And if you had a huge budget, just all the money in the world, you'd make like a double album or something. But that was kind of it, because it cost a lot of money to make that. And that was the model for a while. And then fast forward to today, there's not only tons of music being made, but you can make music for relatively low cost. I mean, you can obviously do it at a big scale if you want, but relatively speaking, you don't have to have tons and tons and tons of equipment. But the model to make money off of it is through streaming. It's through getting the most amount of streams possible. And it's why I have seen a lot these albums where it's like, 20 songs long, 25 songs long, sometimes pushing 30 songs long, which isn't like a necessarily bad thing. But to me, I don't know. I have a hard time dissecting or like taking in a huge album like that. And so
you're the deluxe album.
Well, yeah, that and kind of what I've heard people refer to as kind of like the quote unquote the death of the album, because people and this isn't everybody obviously, but a lot of popular artists, they're not like making albums necessarily all the time because they want to make this grand artistic statement. They're making these 30 song albums, quote unquote, that they know will get tons of streams and will get tons of plays. And will thus make them, and there may be a couple great songs here and there. there may be a couple great songs here and there. And I know it's all subjective at the end of the day, but I want to get your thoughts on the kind of quote unquote death of the album topic. But also, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. I know that there's been in the past few years a bit of a resurgence in vinyl, and I'm curious to see what you think about that.
Yeah. So, on the first off, I guess. So what do I think about long format albums? Like that, just for like, I'm not somebody that technically listens to popular music. I know that sounds so up my butt.
Oh my gosh.
I really, but I mean, I really don't keep up with popular music whatsoever. Like I'm in the dark most of the time, because I'm looking at my little hidey hole and rate your music. You know what I mean? I use rate your music almost religiously. And it's not because of the fact that I want my opinion told to me beforehand on listening to an album. But generally it does show a good sense of a creative peak in artists. And you're like, oh, this is the album I should start with. Maybe probably their best. You know what I mean? It's a general guideline for me to not waste my time all the time garbage. You know what I mean? And trying to focus more on stuff that probably may matter. Even though I guess it's probably based off of other people's opinions. So I don't know at this point. But it's like, so I don't really pay attention to that. I didn't even know that was a trend that these artists, I've seen that whole deluxe edition of like a Lord album that came out like a year before and stuff. And it's usually a whole bunch of garbage that nobody listens to. And like I've noticed, especially with popular legacy artists, Spotify will have thousands of live albums. It takes forever to scroll through their regular crap because these old like old Capitol Records are pushing out everything they can to get these guys plays anymore. I love Isaac Hayes, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like Isaac Hayes to me is like the shining glory of Memphis soul. Like he really is. He, like, you think about at the time in Memphis in the 70s, they had no money to make the records he was making at the time, and he was literally pumping them out. He is one of the most sampled artists of all of rap music. You know what I mean? Like, especially I think it's like Ike's Rap 2 or something like that off of Black Moses. It has like, it's been like in a Portishead song. It's been in what's its name? I know it's the album Max and Neek is what it's called, and it basically a lot of down tempo music loves that drum beat in that song. But anyways, so yeah, it does annoy me. I'm very partial to double albums because I love having more of something I love.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I can get more of a certain vibe from a band and I love that vibe, I'm all for it. But if it's all a bunch of live tracks, like I mean, like I love Zeppelin, like live bootlegs. Don't get me wrong, but there's just so many where it's just like literally Robert Plant and Jimmy Page acting like a mess on stage. Where it's just like I don't need this on Spotify. I can look this up on SoundCloud or YouTube.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So I do think it's bloated. I don't think people know how to make money off of stuff like that yet. It's just so like I've told everybody for the past year, I'm like, we're living in the future. Like we're living in hyperinflation. I never thought I'd live through hyperinflation, let alone like 2 recessions, you know, by the time I'm like 23, you know, it's like we're living in the future. Like we really are. And like music, to me, when I listen to Black Country New Road, what I think in my brain is future music. That sounds like something that hasn't been out yet. You know what I mean? And that's why I had a lot to say about that album in particular. But like, there's been a couple albums in the past couple of years. Like, there's a band called Sweet Trip I really like. I would define them as future music. Moonshaped Pool by Radiohead. That's a definite. That's like they were onto something that I don't think we're going to see for another 15 years. You know what I mean? Like in popular music.
That's been the story of Radiohead's whole career. I mean, really, if we're being honest.
Yeah, like seriously. You know, it's just like we're living in the future right now. I mean, we lived through a pandemic. Did you ever think like growing up that you would live through one of those?
No,
you know what I mean?
No. And specifically on that, like that, you ever heard of people, I'm sure you have, like, they'll say like, oh, I remember where I was when this happened. Or, you know, that was, for me, that was like, if not the first, that was one of the few moments in my life where I had one of those moments where I was like, I remember where I was when like everything shut down, you know? That was, it's
the weekend that happened. I was going to a cabin for my birthday and we went to McDonald's. We couldn't sit down and we were like, wow, that's weird.
Yeah.
You know? And then the weekend, I mean, we came back and everything was gone, you know?
Yeah.
Especially toilet paper for some reason.
Yeah. But yeah, regarding like the whole, you know, deluxe album or just like the massive album, I don't want to sound so super like pretentious when I say this, because like at the end of the day, I'm just a person with opinions, and what they don't matter really at the end of the day. Like, first and foremost, listen to whatever music you want to listen to. Like if you get enjoyment out of it, who cares what I have to say? But me personally, like I have a hard time if you're going to make an album that is beginning to push an hour, you know, if it's beginning to push that, or if it's beginning to push like the length of a movie, you have to either be making, in my opinion, a really big statement, or some, you know, you're trying to tie in some big concept that is worth my time. You know, like, to me, I'm trying to think of some albums that I can think of off the top of my head. But, you know, for instance, I've been talking to some people about this lately, and you know, I don't know if you know about this guy. I don't know where he's from, but I don't listen to a ton of country music, but every now and then I will find an album that I'm like, oh, I kind of like this.
Yeah, it's fine.
And, and there's a guy that I really like, And I was excited for his new album. His name is Zach Bryan. Do you know who Zach Bryan is by chance?
Probably not.
I don't know if you know, but
Probably not.
he sings kind of like more folky style music, country style music, and I really like that genre of country music. And he was releasing his new album, and it's 34 songs long, and it's over 2 hours.
Okay, that's a little bit.
But see, let me get like, this is the thing. So like I see that, I'm like, man, like on one hand, I'm like, I would, the more music, the better. Like I'm excited to listen to it. But at the same time, this album's been out for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I still have not gotten past like song 17, just because I get to that point and I'm exhausted,
That's
like
a problem.
I feel like I've been hit over the head with it.
Yeah.
And so the same thing goes with like the deluxe albums. To me, it's like, and it's so bad in hip hop right now, in my opinion, because people will release these 12, 13 song albums, and then literally a week later they'll release this quote unquote deluxe album, and they'll just add another 13, 14 songs on it. I'm like,
that really is a scam though.
Yeah. And so to me, I'm like,
that's a Viper the Rapper.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like, if you're just churning out this stuff, like you're not, in my opinion, you're not trying to, you're heavily embracing quantity over quality. Like you're not trying to make the best you can make and leave, everything else on the cutting room floor. You're just putting everything out under this guise of a deluxe album, quote unquote, and just in an attempt to get more streams and an attempt to make more money at the end of the day. Now, I know there's going to be some people that are like, hey, I like this artist and it's more music, and so I'm happy with it. And I'm not here to say that person is wrong, because I get it. It's just, to me, like, the metaphor, and again, this is going to sound so pretentious, but the metaphor that I think of is, I would rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. Like, I would rather have a shorter album with great songs, and distill it down to the best you've got, than a 30-song album of just a bunch of, some are great, some are kind of, some are okay, some are not great. Like that's just me, because I like to look at the album in totality. And if 70% of it is okay and 30% of it is great, then okay, you've made a 3 out of 10 album.
Yeah, totally. Opinion, that is totally true. Yeah.
But if you make like a 10-song album and 8 or 9 or 10 of them are fantastic, then it's shorter, but it's a fantastic album. It's
so true.
It's a great piece, in whole. That's kind of the way I feel about it. And I don't want to sound too pretentious, like, but that's just me,
Yeah. So my thing is, like, we've actually seen this before, I think, as a music industry. I'm not even saying this, like, I'm acting like I'm an expert. I'm totally not. I don't know if you've ever been to McKay's though.
Oh yeah.
But and like seeing, like, and you went through all the garbage records and been like, wow, there's so many of these that are just straight up garbage. Like, I would just buy this for 25 cents and throw it straight in my garbage can if I could,
Yeah.
But just to be wasteful.
Well, but there's a reason why they're there,
Yeah. And I sit there and think, and I'm like, this is the same exact thing. And it's like, back then, it's like, you got to realize, like, most people will like one song from an artist or album and put that on a playlist, and that's the only thing they'll listen to by that artist for the rest of the. I know some people I've met that might have 30 to 60 songs on their phone, and that's basically their whole entire musical universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, if
that's interesting to me. Like, that, I can't believe, like, my brain's like, I don't know how that works. That's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know. It's crazy. But anyways, and so, like, them doing that, I guess that does push the algorithm to be like, well, they're releasing lots of songs at once, and this is the hit. So now we're going to push this one song in every playlist, kind of like back then, like, oh, if we release a ton of singles by this one person at once, they'll probably push them up the Billboard Top 100 against the other 50 people in the music industry right now.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny. I love that. I've not even, like I said, I don't keep up with pop. I've not seen that at all. The only person I've seen that from is Viper the Rapper. He's a trap rapper from 2008 who made an album called "What's Up with That? Y'all Cowards Don't Smoke Crack." Okay.
What?
It's the most, like, you would, hearing that and seeing the cover, he's like sweaty. He's wearing a hat sideways. It's amazing. It sounds like he found a keyboard from a pawn shop for like $20 and made beats off of it in the best way possible. But he had, like, last year he released like 300 albums. And
300? You say?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, you could literally listen to a new Viper rapper every day. I mean,
Yeah.
Viper album every day of the year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And again, like if this person's music and the more they want to put out, the better for me. Like that's fine. Like I'm not trying to be like, oh, you must only listen to the great, like that's not what my prerogative at all. It's just I don't know. To me, it just when I know that I'm just being sold a product, like I'm not being given an art like a it's like
that's not even a respect to your time at that
point. And to me it's like what you're telling me is you're just giving me all your throwaways kind of, or like your B-sides like you didn't really want. Like if you want to put out like a B-side project, then say that's what it is. Like, hey, these are just kind of some stuff I was messing around with, I liked it, put it out. Like that's one thing. But if you're gonna put it out as like an album, like a deluxe quote unquote album, I don't know. To me, it's just kind of insulting, like to my time, and it's a shame because like there are some artists that I really like. Like again, I told you that Zach Bryan guy. I really like his music. I like his sound, and I think he does some interesting stuff, especially with the way the country music landscape is right now. It's very different from like what you'll hear on the radio. But like, man, you're asking me to sit through like a whole movie, like 2 hours long. Like I can't do that,
The Beatles are really bad about it too. Like they have like a million anthologies. It's like, do I need to hear Why Don't We Do It the Road for the 36th time? Like this version where they added a kazoo or something, Yeah. It's like, no, I don't. You know? Even though if I said that to my brother, he'd be like, you shut your mouth.
If no one's listening to this, he is fuming right now. He's like, no, you have to listen to it.
He's petting Jenny very aggressively.
But yeah, no. So this is a little bit of a side tangent. I don't know when I first got into the Beatles, but or whenever I was first introduced to them. But like obviously everyone knows about the Beatles. Like they're everyone knows about the Beatles.
They're the best.
And man, if you're new to the Beatles, it can be a little intimidating, for a few reasons. Like it was intimidating for me because like one, they've got tons of music. Like there is a lot of music out there. So it's like
10 albums.
It's like, where do I even start? But then even at that, like they all are so different. If you
What's your favorite, by the way?
Okay, so I will say this. Admittedly, I have not listened to all of their albums. I haven't listened. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I really like that. Like, I haven't listened to all of them. I'm a bit of a normie when it comes to the Beatles from the standpoint of which albums I've listened to. But so let's say, obviously, I love Abbey Road. Everybody loves Abbey Road. It's a great album. If I'm going to sit down, like right now, how I'm feeling at this very moment. I really I've grown to appreciate Revolver a lot more over the years.
Hey man, it's the best one.
Talk to your brother a little bit about it a couple years ago. I really have grown to appreciate Revolver a lot more. Just in its simplicity. I don't know. It's whenever I listen to that album, to me it feels like, and it's kind of a clunky sounding album. Like it's definitely unique.
It's so weird, isn't it? Especially when you hear the harmonies on like "And Your Bird Can Sing," and you're like, that sounds awkward, but amazing.
It's definitely a unique album, and I get why maybe some people maybe kind of turned away from it. But I really like Revolver. I think it's not talked about, and it has a really cool cover too.
I love the cover. That's what you see when you're dreaming, isn't it? That's what I see.
But I like Revolver a lot. And then if I had to, I mean, again, they're all great. Like I say this like, this is the only good one, but I like Revolver a lot. Rubber Soul is pretty good. I like it a lot. It's got but it's totally different in sound. Like it's a lot more.
It's more songy to me.
Yeah. But yeah, they're all fantastic. To me, it's kind of specifically regarding the Beatles, like it depends on just what I'm wanting out of them. If I'm wanting like, feel good, sing songy stuff. Like for me, I'm going to go to Abbey Road because there's so many great, like kind of, I don't want to say campfire songs, but
I'll tell you
they're just songs that you can sing along with so well. They just make you feel good, like
from a music theory aspect, Abbey Road is a sensational album. And I like Something itself, like that song in particular. That intro has so much to talk about from a music theory standpoint. And like, just in that first like 10 seconds, you know what I mean? But to me, like think about that transition from Revolver to that. It's like they honed in that sound. You know what I mean? It's like almost like a Revolver sketch of what was to come. You know?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And then again, I'm not entirely, I guess I could look and see at the time, like the time frames these albums were released in. But like again, they're all so different. Like it really just depends for me, like what I'm wanting out of them. Then you think of Sergeant Pepper's, like that album in and of itself is
it's so fun.
But it's so tonally different, at least to me. You know,
have you listened to the Dolby Atmos version?
I don't know. I don't know if I have. Is that only on Apple Music?
Yeah.
I have it. I don't know if I've listened. I'm not sure if I have or not, but I can certainly do that.
It requires plugged in headphones, but what it does is it simulates where each instrument is in the room with a little bit of reverb. So it just feels like real live performances of the album. I love it. You got to try that at some point.
So I know I have Apple Music, and I know I have that capability. If it's only plugged in, then I need to get some. I mean, I have some. I could do it. But I do want to try that a little bit. Yeah. I think I've got one of those lying around here somewhere. I feel like everybody probably says that at some point. I've got one of those little dongle things somewhere. But and then you got the White Album. Like that's a whole other. Like that was crazy. That was the deluxe album before the deluxe album was cool. Quite literally.
And see what happened there. Somebody killed somebody over. That's why we shouldn't do them, right? Yeah. That's what Charles Manson, he loved that album.
Yeah. It's just crazy. And so I don't know. The Beatles to me, like they're a little intimidating to just get into. If you've never listened to them, like if you're just they're just kind of intimidating because you think of like their early stuff. To me, they kind of remind me, at least in the way they look and the way they sound, they kind of remind me of like a barbershop quartet. Like they're very like, I don't know. That's the way they kind of remind me of. And then just their style continues to change and it evolves and it's so different. There's just so much of it.
They were a unit too.
Yeah.
Like they literally, until they started hating each other, hung out constantly. Like never parted. And that's just, you can totally tell. Like, I mean, like that's a band of people that really love each other. Yeah. Especially like when they're on that rooftop at the very end there. Yes. And they like each other for that last time and Billy Preston's there playing the keys. Oh my God. That's heavenly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they literally they figured out when you listen to Don't Let Me Down, that song in particular. I know I've sang with my brother a couple times, different places and stuff. But that song in particular, that's the secret sauce for making true music. You know what I mean? It really is. Yeah, it is. I think John Lennon cracked it, you know?
Yeah.
He just also did terrible things. So, hey, I went to where he got shot when I was in New York.
Where was that at?
It's some hotel near near Central Park.
Is it okay? So the reason why I ask is because I went to the only time I've been to New York, which I would love to go back sometime. But whenever I went, my dad and I went, and we went to Central Park, and they have a little like Strawberry Fields Forever section. Have you been to that?
That's close to that. Yeah. It's actually right across the street from that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was close to that or not, but I saw that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I forget what it looked like why exactly it was there.
There was a little man with a classical guitar doing John Lennon covers, and they were great. And I sang with them. It was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Something I know I've kind of recently heard a little bit of, for whatever reason, I've kind of recently heard about, and again, I know if Nolan is listening to this, I know he'll have some thoughts on this, but the comparisons or the, kind of saying which one is better between, and I'm not super familiar with this other, well, let me just get to the point. The comparison between I think it's Sgt. Pepper's and Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys is, from what I've heard, is like a huge like debate, like which one is better, because I think from a lot of people those are considered like the pinnacles of both of those. I mean, with the Beatles, it's a little, with both of them, it's different. Like everybody can have their favorite, but I'm curious to hear what your take on that debate is, because I don't.
Sorry, I already answered. I love Pet Sounds. I think Pet Sounds to me, like compared to Sgt. Pepper's, especially, like Sgt. Pepper's is more like they wanted just to record like a live album without going out and doing it. You know what I mean? And like Pet Sounds to me is something that you'll never get outside of that experience. You know what I mean? Like like Caroline No. I don't know if you've ever heard that song. Literally, so amazing.
Well, I've heard. So this is the thing. So I feel very like I've listened to Pet Sounds before. I know I have. I've done it numerous times. I haven't. It's been a while since I've listened to it. So like and also I was not like I didn't grow up listening to the Beach Boys. I kind of I knew about them, but I kind of discovered them later on in my life.
Yeah.
And so to me, like I'm not super familiar with their music. Like obviously I know who they are and know some of their biggest songs, but I'm not super familiar with some of the deep cuts like off Pet Sounds, but I know I have listened to it.
Yeah, I would say that here. I mean that the whole album in general with Pet Sounds is far more emotional, for sure. And not to say that just because something's more emotional that makes it better. Yeah. But to me, like you hear certain things where you're like, oh my God, this is the sound of a man in his mind. You know what I mean? I mean, he literally lost his mind straight after that. And you can hear kind of like Nick Drake. I don't know if you've ever listened to Nick Drake.
Yeah.
Pink Moon, he literally recorded that album at 3 a.m. Like 2 weeks before he killed himself. And like you sit there and you think when you listen to it, you're like, that's the sound of a man that is so lonely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a spiritual piece of music. It really is. And like it's the same thing with Pet Sound. That's a spiritual piece of music, man. You know what I mean? He tapped into something,
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you brought that up. There's an album that I don't go to it a lot, but there's a reason why. It's not because it's bad. Like it's more it's just it's a difficult album to listen to, but it's beautiful for a similar reason what you mentioned with Nick Drake. Do you know who Mount Erie? You know who Mount Erie is?
Oh, absolutely. Crow looked at me.
Yes, dude.
I was going to actually compare that to the Black Country album.
Yeah,
that's the same thing. It's very cinematic.
Yes,
you spend an evening with that album, and you don't want to listen to it again for a while.
I know. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, that album. It is. I remember the first time I was introduced to that.
Unless you're suicidal or something, then you're probably listening to it all the time. You guys need to stop listening to it. That's what you're into.
But the first time I heard about that album, I don't know if you keep up with this guy at all, but it was through one of the Needle Drops video, Anthony Fantano. He reviewed it.
Mr. Mellon.
Yes, and I like to watch his videos every now and then, but I saw that review and I was like, oh, I'll check it out, whatever. And I knew something was different straight off the bat because if you watch his review of that album in particular, in every single one of his reviews, he's like, hey, what? And he kind of has like this kind of goofy little intro. In that video, he was like, hey guys, it's me. Like he doesn't have any kind of facade. Like he's very, upfront, very, very raw almost. And I like throughout the whole album, he discusses like the different, he was discussing the different topics that it touches on. And for those that are listening that don't know, the album is about the guy, I forget his name, but
Phil Elverum.
He wrote the album about his wife that had just passed away. Like he wrote it just after she passed away.
Yep.
And man, you talk about a difficult album to listen to. I mean, I've
only listened to it twice.
It's beautiful. It is a gorgeous sounding album, but it is so it's just like, man, you are put right with whenever he was writing those songs. It's just it's so difficult to listen to, but in like the best way. It's hard to explain. But one of my favorite lines in music that I've heard comes from that album, and I want to say it's the second song. I forget the name of it.
Is it the garbage can line?
No, I forget what it is, but he's talking about how he is with his wife had passed away and she had been cremated. And he was talking about how he was sitting up on this hill, and I'm butchering these lyrics, so you can look it up if you'd like, but he's sitting up on this hill and he's looking at this sunset, and he's basically saying, it's a shame that like people view their loved ones as these bottles of ash, because he doesn't, he in the song, he says, I don't view you as these ashes. I view you as the sunset. That's what and I was like, oh,
that's
man.
So good.
Oh man. I was like, that is, and that's what it ends on. That line is what it ends on. And I'm like, you just like made me want to crawl up into a ball.
See, that's the death of his muse though. He wrote so many songs about that woman. It's the same thing as like Mark Koslake, Sun Kill Moon, Red House Painter's guy. He had a muse throughout his entire career as an artist named Katie. He wrote a song about her that's probably one of his best songs called Katie's Song. That literally, by the way, the first time I ever heard, I sunk in my bed and almost cried myself to death because it's so beautiful. But like, anyways, he wrote about Katie for so many years, and then Katie eventually died of cancer a couple of years after they broke up, but he still was friends with her. And he wrote a song called "Carry Me, Ohio" about her. And then he has another song called "Tonight the Sky" about her too, where he talks about how she's warm sun rays underneath on cool bays, like next to like sun, like sails on a beach or something like that. It's just beautiful. But you know what I mean? He immortalized her in like so many songs, and that's basically what Mount Erie did. Is he gave this woman a legacy. She even sang on a lot of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the thing with me is like I was not familiar with Mount Erie up until that album. Like again, I was introduced to Mount Erie through that review that Anthony Fantano did of that album. So that was the first introduction of Mount Erie that I had. And even still, like I hadn't listened to anything prior, and I was like, man, this is tough. Like it's just, you know, in one of the songs, he talks about how like he's literally telling you like when he's writing the song. He was talking about how like a package had just arrived of something they were going to give to their daughter.
The backpack.
And he's like, and you know, you were here like a week ago or something like that. I'm like, man, it's, and again, the sonically speaking, it sounds fantastic. Like it's so good, but it's just tough to listen to, man. And I will revisit that album every night. I know what I'm getting into, you know, before I go to something like that, you know?
Yeah. It's I love his recording because like especially I don't know if you know this, he records out of an old church that he bought like close to his hometown.
Really?
So that's really cool. So it's self-produced for the most part too. So you know he's just sitting there thinking about all of it while he's making it. I really love Phil Elverum, and I think another turning point for a lot of his fans with that record is like up until that point, if you ever go back and listen through his other Mount Erie stuff, which I highly recommend you do at some point. It's fantastic. He starts this universe, okay? And it starts with this song called The Glow Part 1, okay? And then he releases an album with The Glow Part 2 on it, which is one of his most famous records ever, that one with with the elephant on it and stuff. 4chan loves that record. Well, old 4chan school does. But, I mean, so he had this whole thing going on this whole time, and that was kind of the end of that universe for a little while. Until I don't know if you've listened to his newest record, that's that 40-minute long song. Have you listened to that song?
So I have not. I listened to it when it came. You're talking about Lost Wisdom Part 2. That album.
I think so. It's like an hour long, like one song. If that.
Oh wait, no, this is something different. Or wait. I don't know. I've listened to the albums after A Crow Looked at Me. I have listened to them, but not
Now
recently.
Only is pretty good too.
Not recently, but I have listened to them.
But yeah, he has one that's like 40 minutes, and it's kind of like a sequel to like how A Crow Looked at Me was his life then. Like that's his life now, and him reflecting on his life then with that woman. If that makes any sense. And it's beautiful. The music video is actually just like 600 Polaroids, I think, that he just slams on a table of their whole entire relationship. And his whole entire career up until that point. It's beautiful. Really cool. But
it excuse me. I just, to me, and again, you know, I don't want to paint myself to be this like, oh, I can only listen to the music that is like emotional. Like, you know, I'm a firm believer that like sometimes music is good when it's just like stupid and fun, and you just get enjoy. Like if it's like just Wayne. Fun to listen to. Like if you know, just listen to whatever you like you know, because there's a reason why popular music is popular. Like I'm not here to like you know talk bad about it or anything. Like there's a reason why, and I get it. Like there are times like if I'm at working or doing something, like I just want to put something on that makes me feel good, and I don't have to think too much about it, and that's fine. Like that's great. There is a place for that, and I definitely have a lot of albums that I personally enjoy that fit into that genre. But for me, the albums that stick with me, and like whenever I not rediscover them, but whenever I go back to them and I have like the biggest reaction to them, it's these albums that for me, they offer they're just extremely layered in different ways. Maybe it's from an emotional standpoint. Maybe it's from a lyrical standpoint. Maybe it's from, maybe there may be some nostalgia thrown into it, whatever it is. There's a lot of factors that go into why you would like an album and why you might not like an album.
Yeah.
But to me, it all, the ones that stick with me for the long haul personally are ones that they just have this depth, these layers to them that force me to be present in the moment, present listening to, and that's why for me, again, I'm going to continue to sound really pretentious when I say this, but that's why to me, like, I like to purchase vinyl records. Like, I don't get to listen to them all the time. They're not with me currently in my current apartment, but when you listen to them, it quite literally forces you to, if you're going to listen to it, you have to be right there wherever the speakers are in order to listen to it. You can't like take it with you somewhere,
Yeah.
And so to me, I love to take that time just to try to experience this album again or this song again, and to rediscover kind of why I liked it in the first place, and find out different things about it. And if I can dive into kind of the backstory behind it, I think that's kind of the my biggest appeal to music, for me personally.
So a record for me that I always come back to, and knowing me in high school, you probably heard me talk about it. Kind of Jeff Buckley, though, great.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good
I still
album.
love that record. I think it's a perfect record. I really do. At this point, there's no denying it. Like, I guess I started listening to that like 6 years ago at this point, and I probably listened to it at least almost every week of my life since. Like, no doubt. Or him, at least. I think that for me as an artist, like, well, I hate calling myself an artist. That's pretentious.
Hey, no, you're an artist. Call yourself an artist.
But as an artist, like, he's everything.
Yeah.
Like, to me, he was the last rock star. I know that people give that to Kurt Cobain, but to me, Kurt Cobain was too tragic to be a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
He was destined for failure. Like, no matter how you look at him as a person, he would have never survived. Jeff Buckley had all the light in him to survive past the age he did. He randomly drowned like an idiot just because he liked Doc Martens. Do not wear Doc Martens and swim, people. It's bad.
So wait, I know that he died really early on. Like, what's the story behind how he died?
So after the first album, he was going to record the second one. So he had his band flew into Memphis to record with them. And there's a river in Memphis called the Wolf River that people don't swim in. But since Jeff was a city boy from California and New York, he came down here and he's like, well, that's going to be fun to do while I wait on my band. So he swam in the river with Doc Martens on, and a boat came by and swept him up in the wake. He drowned that way.
Jeez.
Yeah, they didn't find him until 3 days later. But he was that close to recording his second album. He was just like 2 or 3 hours away from doing that. Wow. So it's a huge shame to music because there's no telling what he could have done.
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, Radiohead, we wouldn't have Radiohead's vocal style without him because the Bends, I don't know if you ever heard Fake Plastic Trees. Surely you have. It's a fantastic song.
Yes.
That last vocal run he does that at the end of that song makes me cry every time. But he could not get that song right. And by he, I mean Tom York of Radiohead, the lead singer, could not get that he could not sing it right. And they went out, and Jeff Buckley had just finished the Grace tour, and he was doing these cool coffee shop tours around the world for fun to get back into his coffee shop days because he was tired of people knowing who he was. And he was playing, and so Radiohead went and saw him, and they were instantly inspired by the performance. Went back that night and sang Fake Plastic Trees, and Tom York cried on the floor of the studio. So that's that story to that song. But so we wouldn't have that song without Jeff, probably. So thanks, Jeff. It's a fantastic.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. Yeah, Radiohead is. I've listened to most of their albums. I've listened to all their, I need to look it up.
I've not listened to Hail to the Thief, so I'm a liar when I say
that. Yeah, I haven't listened to Hail to the Thief, and there's a couple other albums, like one or two that I haven't listened to, but they have some great music. I love one of my favorite albums of them is In Rainbows. I love In Rainbows.
Yeah, In Rainbows is a perfect album.
Oh,
It
it's
really
so
is.
good. It's so
It's hard
good.
for me to say anything about it because it's like I don't have anything to say about it. There's not
Yeah.
anything you can say about it.
Yeah.
I'll say that's future music too. That
Oh,
really
yeah.
is future music.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if you've ever listened to a genre called krautrock before.
I know what it is. I don't see this. Okay, this is gonna make me. This shows you anything about myself. I've heard of krautrock.
Yeah.
And there's a decent chance I've listened to it, but if I
Yeah.
have listened to it, I didn't know that it was krautrock when I listened to it. So I don't know. I'm really not sure.
There's a certain style to it, and like a lot of spy music steals the beats, like drum beats from krautrock actually, and a lot of people sample drum beats from krautrock because it's very rhythmically complex for prog music. So it's basically like prog, but like it's more based on groove, if that makes any sense. And it's obviously most of the time sang in German. They're German bands, and it was before and I think it was around the time that the Berlin Wall was about to fall is when it became popular. So it was kind of like this industrial, like kind of communist sounding music that these people kind of got along with. And Can, by the way, is a great band if you ever want to listen to them. They got a couple really good albums, like there's a song called Vitamin C that's really famous that a lot of people like by them. And then there's an album called Future Days by them. And it's literally like the Jetsons put to an album. It sounds like the Jetsons if it's a record.
Yeah.
So, and I forgot earlier that you totally asked about the vinyl record thing.
Oh, yeah.
We can talk about that. Actually, you reminded me when you talked about vinyl records. So I have a huge collection. I started working on it like 2 years ago. We moved into me and Erica moved into a house together while she was still in college, and I've really been wanting one up until that point because I had a couple. Like I had like a super unknown Soundgarden like deluxe edition single set, like that's rare now that I wanted to play, and a couple other records. Like I had OK Computer, excuse me, and I also lost OK Computer, so I don't have that anymore.
That is such a great album, man.
It got lost in one of my moves. So, but now I just got GeoGaddy by Fourth Canada from a buddy after my show the other night. He had brought it from Knoxville just so I could have it, which meant a lot. And I love that record, so I'm probably gonna listen to that tonight after I get off this podcast. But I haven't broke it out yet. It's been sitting in a hot car for like a couple of days, so hopefully it still works because it's like a $70 record.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I have a huge collection. I have an Audio Technica something. It's basically like, it's just the simplest turntable I could get that I can fix if there's any problems with it. It's literally just like a motor, band, buttons, input jacks. That's it, But it sounds fantastic. And I have these cheap edifier speakers from Amazon that match the little turntable a lot. But I used to listen to it all the time, and then we moved, and I haven't gotten it out until a couple of weeks ago, but I'm planning on listening to it again because I missed that.
Yeah.
There's definitely, it's not, I hate when people say there's like a definite like ritual to doing the record player, which there is. I mean, there's nothing like, getting it out and being annoyed that the sleeve won't come off, and then it does. And then you're like, oh crap, I left crap on my needle, so I got to clean that off right quick before I put it on this record.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and then that crackle spins for a second, and you're like, I just want to sit down and listen to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It almost feels like akin to like a different state of mind when you're sitting there, like actually paying that much attention to a record. And it's not just in your ears; it's literally filling the room around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like this relationship between your room that you're in and like the music in your ears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it's not just sitting. Like I love sitting down and listening to headphones, but there's nothing like actually turning it up and just like actually cranking it in a room and letting the acoustics. You know what I mean? Like actual natural acoustics to your ear.
Yeah.
You actually get real bass response and stuff.
Yeah. No, an album that I had an experience like that recently. I a couple weeks ago went and picked up the new Big Thief album. Have you listened to it?
Oh, it's great. It's so good.
A good album.
You talk about a good double album too. That one's actually worth it at the time.
Yes. That I really do enjoy that. I know we were talking about, about double album. But yeah, that is an album I really enjoy. That's one of those albums that it's good. It's good start to finish, and it's also you can pick a random song and it's good on its own.
Oh,
Like,
dude, Spud Infinity might be a perfect song though.
Yeah,
that one has me contemplating my existence while also wanting French fries. You know what I mean? That's great. You know, I showed that to a buddy because he does. I think it's like a philosophy minor, and he goes to Yale, and he like laughed his butt off with like looking at those lyrics because like that's stuff that he learns about in class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was great, and it's intelligent. And the girl that plays lead in that band, I'll tell you, I love her style. I love her lead playing. It's very similar to how I play guitar. I feel like, and it felt affirming to me when I listened to that. I was like, oh, people might listen to my music if they at least listen to this. You know what I mean? Like it was like, and that kind of inspired me to go out and play in Chattanooga like I did that. You know what I mean? And that was super fun. But
but no, with that album, you know, I love if you can listen to it over speakers like that with an you know, on a turntable. It's in my opinion, it's the best way to experience an album like that because
sorry, I have my cats invading podcast.
No, yeah. For those that are just listening, Cole has brought his cat. But the first song on that album is called Change, and it's such a like they're all great, but that song in particular has stuck with me because the way that it just begins by this like
you can't hear him by the way, can you?
No, you're fine.
Okay,
no, you're fine. But the way that song begins, with it begins with this little like, you know, just simple drum. Like I'm forgetting what the name of it is, but you know the drum where you like sit on it, like it's a box and you like slap it with your hand.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know what they're called, but I think that's what they're using. Like that's what it sounds like to me.
It sounds like snare drum.
Kinda, yeah. And it's like it just starts off with this simple little drum beat, and then a guitar comes in, and to me it feels like I've just been transported into like a circle with some friends that are just sitting there singing songs.
Yeah, dude, that's what life's all about.
It feels so inviting to me. It just feels like I've been engulfed in this like big warm hug. I don't know how to explain it, but it's so good. It's such a great introduction to the album, and then everything after that, all of them are fantastic.
And that's what I'm trying to capture.
Yeah,
that's really like when I'm playing music now. I'm trying to like. I realized, like, what am I missing because I moved up here? I don't have that to play with anymore. It sucks. You know what I mean? I had to work around that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, especially after I came back down to Tennessee the first time and I jammed with people, I was like, I'm missing that spontaneous music thing that happens. You have other people that are taking your ideas at the same time as you and totally reinterpreting them in the same exact way. I mean, in a different way. You know what I mean? It blows my mind how I can take a loop and then I can show it to a buddy, and what they will do is something I could never dream of doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's like that Big Thief album just feels like that's why the album cover even feels like that. It feels like, oh, they're just a bunch of little buddies hanging out, you know? It's just great.
Yeah.
I love that they've captured a lot of ideas that I've been thinking about and made an album out of. Because it feels like up until that point too, especially, I don't know if you listened beforehand, it feels like they were so close to making something that good before. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like I would listen to the records and be like, okay, this is great. I don't have anything to latch on to, so I'm just gonna leave this for now.
Yeah.
And then they came out with something now that's instantly like, you know what I mean? I hope they blow up. I really do.
Yeah,
I think they should. They deserve it.
They definitely deserve it. I think they're great, and I think an album like that, it has something for everybody in some form or fashion. You know, there's songs like Change that are very slow, and they're these kind of, you know, subtle songs. They're not gonna like jump in your face and make a statement. But then there's like one of my favorite songs on an album is Love, 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 and like it's such a great song because for a lot of reasons for me, but it's kind of the opposite. Like it's it's a lot more louder. You know, the lyrics are the chorus is literally just I forget the lead singer's name, but she's just chanting love, love, love. Like it's it doesn't sound as good whenever I know when I'm saying it, but I promise it's a good song. But there's something for everybody on that album, and so it's a great way to just to find something you like. I don't know. It's really great, and I hope that they I hope they get bigger, and they certainly deserve it. I agree with you 100%.
I want another thing. They're on some.
Oh yeah,
and I think it's going to be really good. And I'll tell you too, my favorite song on that record is actually that. I think it's like one where she does like classical guitar, and it's a minute and a half long, and it's just her singing guitar and like a synth or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of it, but that's my favorite one. I was like, wow, she's a fantastic guitar player. I just think it's a great ode to different guitar players out there too. I think it's great. But yeah.
No, I agree 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Cole, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to speak with me. I gotta wrap things up here in just a little bit. But first and foremost, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me. It's been a pleasure getting to. Hope we can do. Maybe we can do this again in the future in person.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I appreciate you chatting with me a little bit and getting to talk with you about music. I really do. Music is something to me. I know we all have a different taste, but I really do like. I sound so like I really enjoy music, but like I really do. Like I enjoy music a lot, and I like talking about music that I enjoy with someone that I know that also really enjoys music a lot. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. Before we finish up here, I have a kind of closing segment that I like to finish each episode off with. And so I want to do that with you, if you don't mind. So to finish off each episode, I like to finish off on a different note with a segment that I call 15 quick questions. And some of these are repeat questions. Some of these are, I've tried to cater them specifically to you. But these are all going to be this or that questions. So it'll be like either A or B, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I just want your, off the top of your head, what you're feeling, answers off, straight off the dome thoughts on these questions.
Totally.
So, okay. That sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, this is 15 quick questions with Cole Layman. We will start off with number 1, socks with sandals, yes or no?
No, I never have sandals. And if I think sandals are really convenient actually. And my feet get sweaty, so no. So it'd probably be socks if I did. Or maybe yes, actually. Twist of events.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Dark Side, The Wall, or Wish You Were Here?
Dark Side.
Nice. Who would win in a pogo stick race? John, Ringo, Paul, or George?
George.
Hot coffee or iced coffee?
Hot. Yeah, for sure.
Who would win in a dance competition? Kenny G or Lady Gaga?
Kenny G.
70s, 80s, or 90s?
70s.
Guacamole or salsa?
Salsa.
Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Michael Jackson or Prince?
Prince.
Would you rather ride roller skates or a unicycle everywhere you went?
Unicycle.
Are Crocs fashionable? Yes or no?
I've seen it coming back, man. I don't know what to do anymore. I honestly would like some Croc gloves. I've seen some. But I think that'd be pretty cool to have like giblets and just to show them off and be like, yeah, this is my soccer one from 4th grade.
Crunchy or creamy peanut butter?
Creamy.
Does ranch belong on spaghetti? Yes or no?
No, not at all.
Finally, the last question. I ask everybody this question, and so I want to get your thoughts, but I want you to make sure you give me your rationale on this one.
Okay.
Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? And I want to get your thoughts on it.
Duck-sized horses.
Duck-sized horses. So what's your rationale for it?
So I'm thinking at that point they're just gonna be tiny wiener dogs. So honestly, I could just stomp on them because they're gonna have weak backs. And that's coming from somebody that loves wiener dogs and knows how they are anatomically.
Yeah.
But I know their weaknesses and they know mine. So yeah, I would definitely say 100 wiener dog sized. Well, probably wiener dog sized horses, yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that
pretzels.
was all right, I like it. So that was 15 quick questions with Cole Layman. So Cole, thank you very much for that.
Beautiful.
Before we finish up, I always like to again say thank you for joining me.
Thank you. That was awesome.
But want to give you the floor. If there is anything in particular that you're working on that you want to talk about, if there's anybody that you want to give a shout out to, anything that you got going on that you're, coming up soon that you want to talk about, whatever, the floor is yours. So have at it.
Okay, so I want to shout out anybody that I've played with out there. So Justin the Juice Tones, Bet Kaczynski, Honeymoon, Shag Nasty, even what's their name? Knucklehead. Sorry, there was a lot of names at once. To Knucklehead, I love y'all. Anyways, so I want to shout out all those guys. Those guys are releasing stuff finally. I want to shout out myself, Trash Tones. I actually put out some stuff a couple months ago that I recorded in like 40 hours with a buddy. And I'm actually pretty proud that we got that much done in like 40 hours. Could I do better? Yes. And could he do better? Yes. But I've done better since then, and he's done better. And I'm really proud of that. But in a couple weeks, one of my buddies actually recorded that live show I did at Chattanooga. So I'm going to do a live at JJ's with Trash Tones that I'm going to release. And that's going to be my next thing. So I'm really excited about that. So look out for that. But
nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to, I actually have listened to, it was whenever it released, I saw Nolan posted about it.
What do you think about it?
I enjoyed it. It's been a little bit since I listened to it, but I really did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. And since I've been speaking with you, I thought I need to go revisit that and listen to it again. But
it was awesome. We did it in such a short period of time, and I think it's genuinely pretty good. To me, like myself, I would give it like 3 out of 5. Like it's just like, okay, like I could do better.
Yeah.
We just only had 40 hours, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, check it out. Check it out,
That's
people.
Awesome. That's awesome. Cool. Well, if you're listening, I will put the link to that album or EP. Is it? It's an EP.
It's an EP. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. EP down in the description. So if you want to check it out, then it'll be down there. Do you have any websites, social medias, anything?
Just Trash Tones at Spotify. So yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I will put all that down in the description. So if you want to check it out, support Cole and what he's doing, then head on down there, give it a listen and support what he's got going on. But without anything else, Cole, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll do it again in the future.
We should totally do it again in the future if you want. But
yeah.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Yeah. Thank you so much. See y'all later.
All right. Bye. All right. See you, man. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the podcast. As one final reminder, if you'd like to support the show, then don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast, or share it with a friend. If you'd like to check out any links that were mentioned during the show, or follow the show or myself on social media, then feel free to head to the description of today's episode to find these links. As always, thank you again for checking out today's episode, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I will catch you all on the next episode of the podcast. See ya!